All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this afternoon's session. I hope you had enough time to have a good lunch, a good natter, make new friends, see old friends, and particularly check out the exhibitions and our sponsors, because of course we are very grateful to them. We've got a packed schedule this afternoon. We'll just have a little reminder of what we've got in the agenda. You can see that on the screen, and hopefully those joining us virtually can see that we have got a lot to pack in this afternoon. And don't forget, I really do want to encourage as many people to send questions. They've been fantastic this morning, and I hope you've seen that we've done our absolute best to fit as many questions and thoughts from the audience in, because we really do want this to be a conversation. So do keep them going, and I'll keep an eye on the iPad and be throwing as many of those points and questions to our panellists and speakers as the afternoon goes through. But just as I let the final few people take their seats, just to say how grateful I am for all those questions again. Right, we're going to move on to our next speaker. Delighted to be joined by the Business and Commercial Banking CEO from Lloyds Banking Group, talking to us this afternoon. Please give a very warm welcome to Ellen Caulfield.
Hello, and good afternoon. I'd like to start by saying thank you for the invitation to be part of this. And I'm sorry I can't be with you today in person. We're so proud to have worked in partnership with the MTC since 2015 to develop the skills, research, and technological innovations the sector needs to compete on a global scale. We've extended our partnership through to the end of 2029, now committing to £15 million in total sponsorship. This has supported the training and upskilling of more than 3,800 apprentices, graduates, and engineers, with more than 700 in 2023 alone. We're on track to support more than 6,000 by 2030. When I visited last summer, I met Rama, one of the apprentices at the training centre. She was doing a manufacturing apprenticeship because her sister was an engineer. Her confidence and enjoyment in what she was doing was a joy to see. Today's summit is about skills and how the sector addresses the challenges of developing the skills needed now and in the future to capture new economic opportunities, particularly relating to green growth and sustainability. I'm always really keen to hear directly from businesses about what we need to do to enable them to grow. I'd like to share a short film with you of my visit to a manufacturing firm based in Wrexham, North Wales. Unimat produce aluminium can decorating machines that are exported all over the world.
Yeah, the funding is a big issue. It's capital investment. It's difficult for a small SME to find. We try and source external funding from the Welsh Government, the UK Government, and other sources whenever we can. But the process to actually secure funding is very complex, very time consuming, and always successful. So you can invest a lot of time and effort in making the application and still not succeed. And again, for a small SME, that's problematic. It's very complicated. Having said that, we've had some great success as well. So we recently completed a knowledge transfer project with Wrexham University, which was funded by the UK government. And we developed a virtual reality training tool on the back of that. And the two associates from the university that helped us develop the product are now employed by us. So there's an example of how it can work. But for example, to apply for KTP funding is typically a 6-month process, which is a huge demand on a small business.
And unless you've got somebody who's got expertise in sort of navigating that minefield, it's where do you start?
So simplification of the process and the application would be a massive aspect of that. It's almost a black art knowing the terminology to use in the application, and it's kind of spawned a spin-off industry where there's application writers now that you can employ which kind of is not the function of the process. But yeah, some consultant support probably funded by government to allow SMEs, it's not their expertise applying for funding to make those applications, and so it's less strain on their resources would be a great help. Yeah,
well, it's hugely important, isn't it, for just growth and evolving technology.
Yeah.
It's just hugely important for so many small and medium-sized businesses that they continue to keep pace.
We work in a huge industrial estate in Wrexham, which houses some really big employers, to name a couple: JCB, Kellogg's, Airbus, and these people have resources that we can dream of, so to make ourselves an attractive employer is really difficult. We put a lot of effort into the stuff that we can control, so the culture of the organisation, the soft stuff that helps retain staff. We want them to work here, but attracting them in the first place is a massive challenge. Retaining them, though, is the issue. It's very similar to the funding issue. So we can spend 4 or 5 years developing a young person to a skill level where they're valuable to our business, and then one of these big employers can offer them an inflated salary and off they go. And so having some protection to help us prevent that happening. But generally, the shortage of skilled people is an issue across the whole UK at the moment, and other parts of the world. So anything the government can do to help, attract people leaving school to move into engineering generally, or into our sector would be really helpful. Yeah.
That's why the apprenticeship program is so important, that you're bringing people through, though, isn't it? It's just
Absolutely. Yeah.
keeping them within the business is the challenge.
Yeah.
And who do you mainly partner with for those skill sets? So I know you mentioned before you do quite a lot of work with Wrexham.
There are a number.
Yeah.
Essentially we're not shy if there's something available there. We
Yeah.
generally try and get the help. We've had some consultancy support from local council as well, where you get a guy in to look at a process for you and, you know, give you some ideas on what you can do to improve things. We've done quite a lot of that over the years. So
Yeah.
we've used what's available, but the big funding to, you know, the R&D products, it's so difficult to just make the application. That's the biggest challenge, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do a number of things. So first of all, in terms of our general power consumption, so we invested in a scheme that tracks our electrical usage. So we produce a graph every day of every aspect of our business in terms of what it's using in terms of consumption. We monitor that. We've got a guy who's very active in controlling people, or if he sees something left on that shouldn't be left on, he turns it off. But it actually made a big impact in terms of our electricity consumption. We're also introducing schemes now to improve recyclability. So at the moment we have a machine out there we're trying to recycle for the first time. So it's a 40-year-old machine, but probably 30-40% is reusable. And we're taking that a stage further. So we're thinking now ahead from our machines that we're building today. We're thinking 40 years from now when they wear out. So we're starting to think about the parts of the machines that would be potentially recyclable in the future, by applying QR codes to them, so that when us or anybody else gets that machine in the future, they can very easily scan it and find out what it's made of, what its origin is, and the fact that it's recyclable. So just thinking ahead. So that's something else that we're doing.
I found that very interesting, I must say. That's given me quite a lot of questions that I think I might be throwing into some of our panel sessions later on. But our thanks to Ellen Caulfield there and her business in Wrexham that she was visiting. All right, we're going to move on to an industry presentation now, ladies and gentlemen, nurturing the talent of tomorrow today. Such an important thesis, this one. Please welcome Annie Toner from Data Shack.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone. I'm speaking about a little bit of a different tack today. I'm a data scientist, aka old school statistician. I've been in the industry for quite a long time, over 25 years. And though I thought at university that I was going to practice in a finance or retail type industry, I landed in manufacturing and have spent the last 25 years there. Therefore, the MTC have asked me to speak a little bit about how we train data literacy in a modern factory, and how do we embed data science, and what are the pitfalls, and what actually has worked for our customers. So please don't laugh, but this is a true story. I have a customer, Harry. When I met him when I was about 25 years old, my first statistical consulting job at a big steel mill. You will hear from my accent, though I'm from British descent. I was born in South Africa and grew up there. I went to see Harry at a steel mill in my business suit, 25-year-old young lady, and really, the first moment I walked in with my little laptop bag, he said to me, "Hello, sweetheart, where's your boss?" Because he thought he was to follow. I had to kind of work my way out of that one, saying, well, he's making me some coffee. Let's get started. If you think I'm stupid, you can throw me out at any time. But funnily enough, Harry and I still do business together, and we've actually done some really cool things together. But guys, really, why is that? we clearly had an intergenerational gap. We had a completely different skill sets, but that's what made it good. What made it good was that Harry really knew his business. He had, thankfully for me, loads of data, and he kind of knew what he wanted to ask from that. I had statistical modeling skills, and I could really stitch it together and tell him a story with it. And that's where these things work, and that's where we get respect for one another. Interdisciplinary, as I say, intergenerational, interdisciplinary skills. We really had to sort of meet each other halfway, and today that's a really successful relationship. I really find we've done some recent work in pharma industry where we've actually worked with scientists, engineers in pharma manufacture to try and understand, what are the challenges, and we put execs in the room together with much younger guys in the training and skills programs. And what we found was really that the skills gaps were sometimes that the youngsters had innovative ideas that they didn't know how to communicate upwards, and the other way around, that management didn't really understand what innovation was sitting right in front of them. Another funny story, I work with De Beers, and specifically I've worked in their process department for a long time in continuous improvement and process optimization. However, got introduced in 2011 to their security and intelligence division, where we look at illicit diamond trade and more people behavior in their process than the process itself. I got to working with a team of people, multidisciplinary, a geologist, a process engineer, an intelligence analyst, who's a lady coming from Army intelligence. And when I showed her some of the things I thought about doing with the data, she said to me, Annie, I had to go throw up a little, but at least you know what you're doing. So guys, what stands in front of you sometimes, trust that and try to meet each other halfway, because that's how really shift is going to happen in bringing data and data science into your business. We all see that there's such a lot of talk today about AI, data science, machine learning. People like myself, who's done it my whole life and who's learned a great deal from it. It's hard to bring it into a business and teach it to people and make people understand what it is that have kind of never heard of it or don't know how to use it. So really, there's a big question here, and I think Arash, you spoke about it, to hire in or to upskill. The guys who work in your business are always going to be the people who understand your business the best. I have some quick case studies from customers we've worked with. We're really upskilling people with data literacy skills, data science skills are far easier than actually hiring in. It does work sometimes, but hire in data science skills. We work with Becton Dickinson, a medical manufacturer, and we actually help them become a data science team and then hire and attract the right talent, but only through embedding them in the manufacturing processes. And that's the only way they learn, and they learn these skills. So with Dell, actually, we run some programs with in Africa, upskilling underprivileged youngsters in data science. And the first thing I always get asked, I teach a little class a day in the life of a data scientist. And the first question I always get asked is, when are we going to be replaced by robots? and guys, those are good questions, but we've seen today that it's only as good as the data, the AI, the ML, robotics, drones are only as good as the data that we have, the security there, and that we trust that data, because the answers that it spits out is sometimes going to be quite ridiculous if we don't know what we're doing with that data. So with that, I want to just quickly talk about some people who have really, really gotten it right. I work heavily in mining industry from my background, where digital twins is the talk of the day. hands-off, running mines, platinum, gold mines, diamond mines. These people like Anglo American Platinum, De Beers, we currently kind of train 300 to 600 people a year on their data literacy programs, Six Sigma, basic analytics, AI and ML, just introduction to what it is. In oil and gas itself, ConocoPhillips, a customer for us, has really embraced this. So we actually don't train anybody in the IT department at all. We actually work with process engineers, metallurgical engineers, geologists, and so forth. And that they've really managed. We train on a yearly basis up to 10% of their workforce on just basic data literacy, and it's really done them well in completing projects, in improving certain things specifically. Again, people like British American Tobacco, SAB Miller, I've been working with for 20 years, but just making sure and skills literacy programs there is almost at the core of what they do. So I think they've really gotten it right in that the minute a person is recruited into that process, that person is trained, not just with their technical skills, but being able to understand and analyze data and what we've put in front of them. And high-tech manufacturing. So people like Nexperia we work with, they've got every week for the next few years, 2 hours per week dedicated for any one of their workforce to attend these kinds of skills training courses. So I want to talk lastly just a little bit about who are the consumers of data science. Guys, if I get on a plane and I'm really tired, and people ask me what I do, I say statistics, and they stop talking to me immediately, right? But making this stuff that you struggle to touch and feel actually tangible for the stakeholders in your business. You know those guys. You know people in labs, people in engineering, business leaders even, for whom it's really, really difficult to digest. So what are we seeing? We're seeing what Gartner is terming the rise of super apps. Apps that actually, our kids use apps. I have grandchildren, by the way, and they use apps probably better than me sometimes. So, making sure that we bring the data and the analytics. I was fortunate enough to listen to Michael Dell saying that if a 5-year-old can't interpret what a graph is showing on the screen, it should not be published. So guys, really, hopefully, the industry and data scientists and statisticians like myself become more and more able, and it becomes more and more consumable to the users within our manufacturing community, to assure we bring them, and it's our job as an industry to bring them the information, what the AI and ML algorithms and data science is telling them, as consumable as possible and in very easily understandable apps. So guys, that's me. That's all the time I have for today. Please, if you want to talk some more, our stand's right by the entrance. Come grab a chocolate, a data snack, and please chat to the team. We'd love to hear from you and just get your inputs. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for that. And I know I've got a habit of leaping on the thing that's not really the big picture, but I'm afraid after Annie said she had grandchildren, I just stopped believing everything else that she said, because I thought, no, that cannot be the case. But really, really interesting. And I will definitely come and ask you about super apps. It's not really even an expression I'd heard before. So yeah, lots of food for thought there. So thank you very, very much to Annie. All right, we're going to get another political perspective now. So I'm going to introduce to you Welsh Minister for Climate Change, Julie James.
Good morning, pal. I'm delighted to be part of the National Manufacturing Summit. Today, I want to update you on the progress we're making in delivering Wales's Manufacturing Action Plan. I must, though, begin with the news of the potential job losses at Tata Steel in Port Talbot. The Welsh Government believes that the UK Government and Tata have the tools to secure a longer, fairer transition for a sector that is good for green growth and essential to our collective security. This links strongly to the themes of this conference: skills, the future workforce, and decarbonisation. Manufacturing in Wales employs around 150,000 people, with many more employed in the supply chain. It accounts for over 10% of all Welsh jobs and 6,000 enterprises. Some of the largest manufacturing companies in the UK have made Wales their home, and we are a great place to locate and invest. Our Manufacturing Action Plan is aimed at future-proofing the sector and ensuring its contribution to the well-being of future generations. When the Minister for Economy addressed you at last year's summit, he highlighted the plan's 6 strategic objectives. Today, I will focus on 2 of these: decarbonising industry and workforce skills. The need to decarbonise is immediate, as is the need to address the skills challenge. It is important we recognise that carbon is a cost arising from manufacturing. We must understand what we use and how we reduce consumption. We all want a better, fairer and greener future, so we have committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Our Net Zero Wales strategic plan focuses on how we will transition effectively and equitably, not simply protecting industries and their employees, but strengthening them and developing skills for future markets. In 2022, we created Net Zero Industry Wales, which is driving our collaboration between industry, academia and government. This is the culmination of over 2 years of work involving 30 organisations such as Rockwool, RWE, Salsa Steel, Dragon LNG, ABP, Tata and Valero. We know that there are significant challenges in decarbonising our heavy industries in particular because of the requirement to generate very high heat in production processes and the resulting byproduct of CO2. We are, though, making progress. For example, in North East Wales, we are building on the links that the area has with the HyNet project, a cross-border hydrogen energy and carbon capture project led by a consortium comprising of partners such as Progressive Energy Limited, NEUK, Cadent and Hanson Cement. North Wales is at the forefront of low-carbon energy research, production and skills development, from marine energy such as the tidal Moor Ice demonstration project and offshore wind projects to hydrogen and potential new nuclear facilities. Toyota in Deeside is making high-quality, highly efficient hybrid engines for global markets. It recently celebrated 30 years of manufacturing and is on track to be Toyota's first carbon zero manufacturing facility globally. A low-carbon economy is a circular economy, given that 45% of global carbon emissions come from the products and services we consume. Eliminating unnecessary waste in manufacturing is a key issue, and this includes single-use plastic, food and clothing, all of which have high harmful emissions. We therefore need to invest in people to develop and grow the right skills, and this includes reskilling current industries to adapt and make the transition to a low-carbon future. Feedback from industry indicates that 40 years ago, a typical medium-sized automotive company would have had up to 5% of its workforce participating in skills development. Today, this is about 1%. We are facing a future of rapid technological, social and economic change, where adaptability, creativity and digital skills will be vital. Working in partnership with the Apprenticeship Network, we will continue to promote and prioritise quality apprenticeships, including those in higher level, more technical sectors. We are therefore providing support to the manufacturing sector through several programmes. We've invested an additional £250,000 in our flexible skills programme to upskill employees in net zero skills, with manufacturing playing a key role. Our £30 million personal learning account programme includes a £3.5 million investment to meet net zero skills gaps in construction, energy, manufacturing and engineering. And we are promoting STEM career opportunities and expanding employer engagement in primary and secondary schools, challenging deeply embedded attitudes and stereotypes, and raising awareness of the diverse range of educational and employment opportunities that are available, particularly important for the manufacturing sector. And finally, just last year, we launched our Net Zero Skills Action Plan. It recognises the importance of engaging with business leaders and other key stakeholders to ensure that industry and government are aligned and mobilised as we face this challenging future together. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much indeed for listening.
Right, well, many thanks to Julie there. Okay, we're going to move on to an industry presentation next. This is an introduction to the Workforce Foresighting Hub. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Steve Picker.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Picker, and I'm a technical lead for the Workforce Foresighting Hub. And over the next sort of 5 to 10 minutes, I'd like to reiterate the skills challenge and our interpretation of it. I'd like to discuss some of the solutions we're working on to try and positively impact that challenge, and also a brief introduction to the Workforce Foresighting Hub. Sorry. So the skills challenge, I don't think there'll be too many surprises on the screen, certainly with the various presentations you've seen today and discussions you've had. 60% of employers struggle to find staff with the right skills and knowledge. The staff they have got, it's predicted 20% of their skills will need to change over the next, by 2030. That can impact up to 6.5 million people. But from a manufacturing point of view, the UK is 8th in the world in terms of manufacturing outputs. However, our productivity is 16% below the G7 countries, partially down to the adoption of emerging technologies. As a technical person, I do like a diagram and a flow chart, so bear with me. And what I'd just like to use this visual to expand on is, if we look at the diagram from left to right, we can see the journey of adopting emerging technologies. And on the left, we can see those forces for change, those factors driving that adoption, because it's hopefully going to make us more competitive, increase our productivity and efficiency. It will help us diversify and be more sustainable. So that's great news. However, the forces holding us back, again, hopefully you'll recognise most of them on there. Our awareness of what's out there and how it benefits us, the investment needed to invest in those emerging technologies, our appetite and the risks associated with the change. But for me, one of the key factors holding us back is having a skilled workforce that can work with those new emerging technologies. And that's the part I want to focus on. So another diagram. So one of the challenges we have is what I refer to as a lagging skills system. And if I just walk you through the typical process, again, starting on the left, when it comes to adopting emerging technologies, we have our technologists working at places such as the MTC and other centres, research and technology organisations who are working to prove out these emerging technologies and try and move their technology readiness levels from mid-level to the high level, so that industry and wide industry can then start to adopt those. So once that's done, industry, we then look to adopt those technologies, and that for us means increasing our capabilities throughout our business, whether that's our design capabilities, our manufacturing capabilities, but also our wider logistic and support capabilities. And when we start making those changes, we send a demand signal to our education and training providers, where we're demanding the provision of new skill development so we can train our staff to start working with these emerging technologies. And as we know, our sort of training partners and education partners will then adapt their products and services to include the new skills, knowledge and behaviours we need in our programmes, whether they are apprenticeship programmes, tactical short courses or qualifications, to then feed into our workforce development plans. What this can then lead to is the workforce development lag. Okay, that time period where industry, we're trying to adopt emerging technologies and increase our capabilities, sending those demand signals. By the time those programs are developed, we're already lagging behind in some cases. Okay, so developing a solution. Some of you will hopefully recognise this. This came out of a piece of work commissioned by the Gatsby Foundation, the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, and the Welding Institute. And it was essentially an international study tour to try and understand how other countries address this problem, this lag problem. The recommendations from the report was the skills value chain. And what the skills value chain tries to do is to connect innovation and technology with workforce development. So again, moving left to right, the process starts with convening expert input, and that input is from technologists, employers, and educators to work out what needs to change in terms of future capabilities and future skills. It then looks to create new content and new curriculum, and often what's missing, the final part, is the upscaling and upskilling of training provision so that they can then deliver the training needed to enable the adoption of these new technologies. The part I'm involved with is the first step of the skills value chain, the workforce foresighting. And what I'm going to walk you through is a systematic approach we've developed, which tries to define the future state in terms of organisational capabilities that are needed by the supply chain and how they translate into the new skills needed by the workforce and how that workforce needs to be structured. So, we'll go back to one of my diagrams. So, same diagram as before, but we can see here now we've got the convening experts part in the middle. And what this is trying to do is connect experts from technology, those people working on the forefront of technology, and they understand what's coming over the hill, working with employers and early adopter employers, and importantly, having the educators involved in those conversations. And we're trying to bring these three groups of experts together in relation to whatever subject or challenge we're trying to address. And I'll give you some examples of the challenges in a moment. And what this can help do is by introducing this sooner, we end up with an earlier demand signal. So we can preempt skill shortages by getting the training education establishments thinking about how they need to adapt their products and services to cater for these new skill demands. And what that has the impact of doing is trying to reduce this lag. So when industry is ready to adopt technology and upskill their workforce, the provision providers know about it and are already starting to consider the changes they need to make to their apprenticeship standards and qualifications and so on. With this reduced lag, we can adopt technology quicker and then remain competitive. So that's the solution. So quick introduction to the Workforce Foresighting Hub. So this diagram kind of shows the landscape. So initiated and funded by Innovate UK. The hub has been set up to work in collaboration with the catapult centres and the technologists in there. And our process has looked to identify different challenges that we need to try and address and then attract employers and educators to work with us to help us understand the future skills, the future capabilities needed to accelerate this adoption. We're aligned to national policy. So the cycles we're working on typically sit within the net zero, digital and technology, and healthy living and agricultural sectors. And as you can see on the right-hand side there, it's just some examples of some of these cycles we've already started working on and completed, working on right now, and plan to work on for the remainder of this R&D project. So you can see there, and some of these will come up in conversation, I think, with the panel shortly, working with, trying to understand what's needed to support dynamic cabling on offshore floating rigs. How does the supply chain need to change to support the adoption of the technology associated with that? How does the workforce need to be structured, and what skills do they need? And ultimately, what changes do we need to make to the training provision to enable that? Another example one, working on it right now, is the active debris removal in space. So how do we repurpose a satellite supply chain business to also start collecting debris to support that area? We've got battery manufacturing on there, we've got agricultural on there, and then we've also got advanced media production. So we've done a project earlier, and we've got some projects coming later. Again, Ashmita's on the panel who can expand on those. So hopefully that gives a bit of context to the areas we're working on. So finally, just wanted to sort of position our outputs of our system. So the top part of the diagram shows essentially we get input from our experts. We also leverage global data sources such as ONET, iFate system, escrow system, which is where these current organizational capabilities reside. We leverage AI and large language models to do some of the data analytics. But essentially what we try and produce in relation to those subjects is what are the future occupations needed? What capabilities do supply chains need to adopt? What changes we make to provision? And then more importantly, what is the actionable insight? So what are the recommendations to cause action? Thank you. So,
Steve, thank you very, very much. That was very clear. Really, really interesting. All right, we're going to come on to our first panel of this afternoon now. So I'm going to invite the panelists to come and take a seat. We've got Alex Ledley from CSA Catapult, Andrew Essen from the Future Skills Lead for ORE or Catapult, Ashmita Randhawa, lead Digital Catapult Northeastern Tees Valley, and Dawn Wilson, who is chairing this session. I'm going to come back and help with the Q&A. So I'm going to take the iPad now. And so do start sending your questions from now for this really important session. This session, Foresight for Future Change, right skills, right time, right place. Dawn, over to you.
Thank you. And welcome to the panellists here to talk about future skills. So Alex, I'm going to start with you. You have a skills lead in a Catapult and you chair the Cross Catapult Skills Forum. What are they talking about in terms of future technologies coming down the line and ultimately what that means for skills?
I think predominantly, how can we be part of the solution? What role does the Catapult network play? How can we use workforce foresight and other collaborations, partnerships to move the dial on the future skills conversations that we all hear about so much from both the industry sectors that we sit within, but also the local communities.
So what are they ultimately hoping to get out of it? Do they want systematic change of education, or is it particular to their industry?
The Catapult network.
Yeah.
I think the data that will be thrown up from the results of the workforce foresighting will give tangible recommendations that we can then use our networks to actually roll out something real.
And are you seeing that they're all going at the same speed, or
no? No, I mean, I think the Catapult network is very, very diverse in terms of geography, in terms of size, in terms of resource. I know Andrew and Ashmita are further along than my own Catapult.
Do you want to tell everyone what your own
Yeah,
Catapult
sure.
is?
So I'm the Skills Academy Manager for the Compound Semiconductor Applications Catapult, which rolls off the tongue. So for us, we are doing a foresight cycle, which is around 5G diversification. And it's fair to say our lead-in time, our planning phase has probably been the longest ever. But I think largely because there was a little bit, or there is a little bit of sort of weariness from industry around another skills survey. So it's really being clear that this isn't just that. This offers something much different. It's much more in depth, and it's actually giving industry an opportunity to influence organisations such as the Department for Education, for example, or iFate, or those people that can actually implement changes now that will benefit industry in the future.
Yeah, because we're not talking about tomorrow, are we?
No, and I think that's the real, that's the hardest thing to communicate, is that this isn't going to solve today's problems. This is playing the long game.
Yeah.
We're trying to do something now which is going to stop us being in this situation in the future.
Yeah. And when we say Horizon 2, typically, what are we talking about?
I think 5 to 10 years.
It depends on the sector.
Yeah, it does depend on the sector. Yeah.
So handing over to you, Ashmeeta, you have been involved for some time. What actionable insights are you getting out of this process for you, your Catapult and your industry partners?
I might take a step back and just describe our cycle a little bit. So I'm Ashmeeta. I'm from the Digital Catapult, based up in the northeastern Tees Valley, one of the regional centres for the Digital Catapult. And we ran a cycle about a year ago now, Steve, isn't it? Really rushed, to be fair, in advanced media production. Just a quick show of hands. Who's heard of advanced media production before? How many of you have watched The Mandalorian? Okay, so all of The Mandalorian, that's a good number. Most of The Mandalorian was actually filmed using this technique called virtual production, where if you think about sort of creative industries and screen industries having used green screen technology in the past and done a lot of post-production work to overlay sort of the images that they wanted, virtual production is bringing virtual environments that are generated in real time on a large LED wall behind actors. So we've got a giant LED wall on which you're using game engine technology to bring virtual environments to life. So you can on the fly make it be day, on the fly make it be rain. You know, the director can say, don't really like that red thing there. Can you make it blue? And you could change it. And then all of a sudden, your workflow completely changes to what it used to be in the industry, right? So you're seeing this adoption, this increasing adoption of game engine technology, very much in the realms of immersive, very much in the realms of games and video games, now suddenly coming into the screen industries. So it became increasingly apparent to us that we needed to understand what impact that was going to have on workforce capability requirements. You know, what was this going to mean to that entire workflow of production? How, you know, everyone from, you know, the actor to the director to the lighting to the camera person had to think about things differently and had to be, you know, developing skill sets that were different from what potentially existed today. So the cycle that we ran was very much about understanding the impact of that real-time rendering engine in production, really. And, you know, I think what was fascinating for us was the engagement that we got from the small and medium-sized enterprises, really, because they understood the value of that long game, right? Because they were having to adapt quickly and adopt this technology to stay at the front of the curve. It wasn't just about the large Pinewood Studios. This was about SMEs in across the regions really thinking, I'm going to have to plan, and I'm going to have to plan now. So we got a lot of engagement from SMEs, which was fantastic. So the insights that we've gotten from this is that there's 16 potential future occupational profiles that we need to consider. But what we've already started to action is the learning that those capabilities are now shared a lot more across all of those profiles. No longer is game engine technologies and the skills and the knowledge and the behavior just stuck with the game's developer. Really, everybody in that workflow is now going to have at least some understanding of that technology that's now becoming such an integral part of that workflow. So as we're designing workshops, as we're designing these skills sort of packages or talking to companies when we're talking about adoption of these technologies, we're already starting to action some of these insights that we've got from the foresighting cycle. And equally, you know, when we bring in companies to talk about virtual production, to talk about this space that we've got a studio up in Gateshead. If you find yourselves in Gateshead, please do come visit. We also have one in London. But, you know, as we talk to companies about adopting this technology, what's becoming increasingly apparent is that organizations are getting it, that they can't not talk about skills or think about capabilities and really start to view that as two sides of the same coin. So this has also been increasingly helpful for us to start creating, I think the Workforce Foresighting Hub loves the term common taxonomy, and I think that's actually true because, you know, if you think about gaming sector moving into the creative sector, now this work allows us to talk across both sectors and go, hey, hang on, these are the capabilities that you're going to need across both sectors, and this is how you could be learning from each other. I will stop there, but hopefully that's helpful.
That's excellent, and I'm really pleased to hear about the SME, because if getting that right for most sectors, I think is really important. And I know you're leading the way on your next cycle.
Yes, which is very exciting because, as you can imagine, this is, as I was describing this to Alex before, just in terms of what we've got in the studio. You know, there's these layers of technology on top of each other, and the industries are adopting new technologies at such a fast pace. You know, you've got this studio space where you've got traditional screen technologies meeting game engine technologies, meeting a private 5G network that connects the two studios. And now you've got content creators coming up to us going, I want to create my content completely differently. And I want to utilize AI to do that. I want to do it faster. I want to do it, I want to do it in a more efficient way. Holy cow, we have to really think about what that means. As we start to now tackle this challenge of content creation and how people are approaching this, what are the solutions that could potentially do that? Is generative AI going to play a role? What does that mean? So the cycle that we're now planning on tackling is around that content creation. We think we'll end up in the realm of AI being one of those solutions. But again, part of what we do through the process is identify which of those solutions we need to tackle first for that Horizon 2 sort of planning. But then I think more importantly, and I've been speaking to quite a few people about this, is not run those cycles in isolation, right? We're going to identify future occupational profiles through those cycles, capability requirements. How do they overlap? Yes, we've got the game engine technology. Now we've got potentially AI layered over that. What does that mean? We don't want to be generating just another report that has more future occupational profiles. How do we actually use that in a way that's most sensible?
Excellent, thank you. Andrew, your industry is going through such massive transformation. How are you dealing with that? And in particular, how are you relating that to the future skills required?
Good question. So firstly, good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted as the grumpy old mechanical engineer in the room, but we have a panel in front of us, so it tells me who I am and why I'm here. I've also drafted some notes just so I don't ramble off piece. Firstly, I'll go for a bit of audience participation like Ashmitha. I'm interested, how many people in the audience are involved or work in an organisation involved in the offshore renewable sector? Oh, a few there. I better not make anything up then. You'll be able to throw me to task. So I guess if we think about the offshore wind sector, our innovation challenge is that moving forward, we will need more bigger wind turbines in deeper waters. So that's driven, we have a grand challenge of 30 gigawatts offshore wind by 2030, including 5 gigawatts floating offshore wind. Back in Boris's day in the run-up to COP22, I think he pushed that to 40 and 50. Beyond that, by 2050, the industry aspirations are 100 gigawatts offshore wind. So facing massive growth, particularly if we bear in mind that the installed capacity at the moment is around about 10 gigawatts. So 10 gigawatts to 30 gigawatts in the next 6 years. In terms of technology challenges, so we're facing things like, currently the biggest wind turbine capacity is 15 megawatts. Next generation will be 20 megawatts. Turbine blades are about 108 meters long. Next generation will be 125 meters. Now, I should have said, we're also in a bit of a mini Northeast takeover.
We are.
Like Ashmitha, I'm from the Northeast. The Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult Test and Development Centre is based in Blyth. This year, I think it's just been announced, we have funding and we're going to be extending our blade test facility from 108 to 125 meters and our drivetrain facility from 15 to 20 megawatts. Now, why is that important? Well, if you think the Dogger Bank wind farm, which is just off the coast of the Northeast, that will have 272, I think, GE Haliade wind turbines operating there when it's fully up and running. The commercial decision to buy that wind turbine from GE came from the life cycle testing of the Haliade wind turbine at the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult. So if anyone's wondering where catapults fit into the technology sector, that's a pretty good example. So blades, 100 to 125 meter. Digitizing operations and maintenance. So a lot of this resonates with earlier discussions. Robotics and autonomous systems, as we move offshore with more and more wind turbines, it's how do we replace the people element of operations and maintenance? How do we use remote and autonomous systems to do that? Overall, when I reflect, so my career started more than 40 years ago, and ironically, serendipitously, in a cycle that's taken me through coal extraction, the design and manufacture of equipment for coal-fired power stations, nuclear power stations, gas-fired, oil and gas exploration and production. Somewhere along the way, bizarrely, I worked in electronic vehicle control for the electronic sector. And more recently, as I've moved out of engineering into education and skills, working at Newcastle College and then within the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult as a skills strategist in offshore wind. So just by luck or chance, I've followed that cycle. And certainly what strikes me is if anyone has young people who are looking for a really interesting, challenging sector, offshore renewable is a great place to be an engineer because we don't have to look very far for our challenges. So in terms of skills, so the Offshore Wind Industry Council published its Skills Intelligence Report last June, which said currently 32,000 people working in the sector. By 2030, if all planned projects go ahead, that'll be 104,000. So that's 72,000 new entrants, in addition to whatever percentage of the existing 32,000 need to replace through retirement or moving into other sectors. So massive challenge, all sorts of industry sectors. Interestingly, one of the identified areas is data scientists. There is a thought we need hundreds of data scientists. Actually, probably what we need are engineers who understand how to use data science, because having worked in higher education and in digital for a while, there are not that many people who grow up thinking, I want to be a data scientist.
Or a statistician, right?
So, but within that, I guess one of the key things, and if we compare and contrast, our other big offshore industry is oil and gas. So if you can compare and contrast oil and gas with offshore wind, oil and gas is all about fluid transfer. Offshore wind is largely about electronics or electron transfer. So it's flipping from a predominantly mechanical industry to a predominantly electrical, although all electrical equipment, as a grumpy old mechanical engineer, is underpinned by mechanical engineering. So in that context, so thinking about our foresighting activities, the first challenge we chose was high voltage dynamic cables for floating offshore wind. We happen to have a high voltage dynamic cable factory being built around the corner, so it seemed to be a good starting point. It is one of many single points of failure within offshore wind. There are so many aspects of the technology, whether it's the drivetrains, the blades, the structures, the cables. If they start failing on a wind farm, you don't produce electricity. That can be very costly. So we've got many technology challenges. We chose high voltage dynamic cables because we knew it would be a good cycle to get our teeth into. We've completed and reported. In fact, I think Steve flashed up a picture. So if this evening you're feeling really bored, then go to the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult and you'll be able to download our report. It's riveting, really. Our outputs are recommendation from the report. So I'm a great believer that there's nothing worse than writing the report and saying, what a wonderful report we've done. Let's move on to the next one. The critical thing is the so what. What do you do with the report? So I'm pleased to say, we've hit the ground running because we already have some quick wins. We're working with APITO, or the Oil and Petroleum Industry Training Organization, who are rapidly scrabbling across into offshore wind to help them develop a new training competency standard in high voltage engineering. We're working with Newcastle University to develop a new high voltage engineering degree apprenticeship using the outputs from our foresighting cycle as inputs. And we're also working with a commercial training provider to think about how can we leverage the fact our catapult, because of the work we do, is almost like a mini power station. You know, when we're testing a drivetrain, we are in fact generating electricity. We're pulling electricity and we generate it, then we run it in a virtual cycle. So we're just topping up. But if anything goes pop, then all the lights go out in Blythe. So there's lots of really dangerous equipment in there. So how can we leverage that to use that as a stepping stone into the industry? Longer term, I've pushed back some key asks to government because in my view, there's no point us doing just one cycle in the offshore wind sector. Because if we do that, then 2 years' time, everyone will say, what's foresighting? And as I said earlier, we have many technology building blocks, many challenges. So my ask of government is the financial support so we can roll through all those building blocks so we can build a cohesive picture. Now, one of the things about foresighting is it will tell you what your future capacity is. It doesn't tell you the how many. And that's always the $6 million question. Government reports are good at pulling out big numbers. The OWIC Skills Intelligence Report, 104,000 in 2030, sadly, you can't drill down to how many high voltage engineers or how many data scientists you still need to figure that out for yourself. So we need to find a way of joining that up. We also need to start figuring out how we can work across industries, because the challenges we face in the offshore wind sector in terms of high voltage engineering, exactly the same as are being faced in the high voltage transmission and distribution. Because we've got that small matter. In the old days, power stations used to be built where the power was consumed. So lots of power stations in the Midlands. Well, now if half of your power is coming from the North Sea, it's got to travel a long way to get to the consumers. So that's putting a lot of strain on the grid and will require a lot of high voltage capability. So we need to be working together on those things.
So I think we're seeing a brilliant example, lots and lots of passion. I think, you're all working in quite interesting sectors that has relevance, lots of relevance for the audience. What would each of you say to the audience here if they're not thinking about future skills? What would be your message?
I think it's very easy to see skills as someone else's problem, isn't it? I think we all have to take a role in finding a solution if we don't want to keep this cycle repeating itself.
Yeah.
The Workforce Foresight in Hub are welcoming people out, even outside of the Catapult network. Now we want to see this gain momentum, cover sectors and niche areas that perhaps aren't given so much of the spotlight. That's just collaboration, I think.
And Andrew, I mean, you are collaborating. It's a brilliant example. What else would you say to the audience?
So when I ponder, and about 2 years ago I tried to retire. Turns out I'm rubbish at retiring. But in my retiral speeches, I was thinking about skills, because I've been involved on an industry side of skills, training and developing apprentices and employing graduates and others for the best part of 30 years. And I look back and think, sadly, we're still trying to tackle the same problems in 2024 that I was working on in 1990.
Yeah.
How do we get more women? How do we get more diversity into industry? The other challenge, we tend to get stuck in our industry bubble. So I've been in my college role, I would go to offshore wind events or automotive events. Everyone talking about the same thing. We need tens of thousands more people into our sector. So you go to an offshore wind event, I think, great, we'll lure them from other sectors. And I think every other sector is having the same conversation. So we need to recognise we have a chronic skills shortage. We're not going to be able to pull them across because they're having the same conversation. How do we pinch them up from offshore wind? Where that takes me, and as an employer, I was managing director of 2 businesses where when I came on board, each of them hadn't recruited an apprentice in 16 years because we got our fingers burnt on the last one. I quickly put that right because I came from a culture where you've got to invest in your future talent. We all need to do that. It's too easy to say we can't get the skilled people. The thing that really bugs me back from my college days is that I know that, for example, in the Northeast, there's a talent pool of about probably 3,000 young people who are studying engineering at further education in the colleges across the region. I'd love every employer who says, I can't get the talent I need, because these kids they're doing what they're doing because they would have wanted an apprenticeship, but they can't get an apprenticeship. So the next best thing is go to college for 2 years, study engineering, and then hopefully you'll get an apprenticeship. The sooner you start, because I've run businesses where they said we can't get experienced hydraulic technicians. I say, well, what are you trying for? Well, you've got to be able to do all these things. Well, bollocks. Sorry, technical term. If you go out and bring somebody with the right attitude and right aptitude, and then invest time in training them and start them on the easy tasks, they will very quickly become valuable. So the quicker we recognise that there aren't the skilled people out there, we need to reach out into our schools. Maybe my final point before I shut up is that now that I'm paid in my semi-retirement to ponder skills, and I do that when I'm walking the dog, I think, well, why is it getting more difficult? And one of the things I think is that back when I was growing up, every house on my street had somebody who worked in the local paper mill. Partly because the paper mill owned all the houses at the time, so you sort of had to. But it meant that every young person, every young lad in those days could see their career in front of them. I'm going to be an electrician or a fitter or a car mechanic. I'm going to do something craft-based, or in my brother and I's case, go on to university and study engineering. I don't know, probably 50-60% of the workforce worked in manufacturing engineering. The last Make UK statistic I saw said 15% of the workforce. So the point, and I've made this at conferences, that when you go to an automotive alliance in the Northeast Skills Conference, everyone's getting really excited. But the point I made, I think I gate crashed the stage, is that you're really excited. You think everyone understands your industry, but there are so few of us in our sector that we're way out in the periphery of people's consciousness. So consequently, and we talked earlier about in schools, people just don't understand. It's because they just don't know we exist, and we really need to work harder to get into schools to make sure that people do know we exist.
It's a really good point. Ashmeeta, last thought.
I don't know how to follow that.
Last thought before we have a little bit of time left for some questions.
I think just coming back to the question around getting involved with foresighting, I think there's one. I think we as a Catapult network owe it to ourselves and to the various industries that we're working with to talk to each other about the various foresighting cycles, which I think the hub is sort of enabling us to do, because we're all thinking about the adoption of similar technologies to solve these grand challenges. And, as I mentioned, we're suddenly having a conversation with the gaming industry and the screen industry to use that same language. Equally, I know, Alex, we're going to be talking about 5G potentially and agri-tech, and I'm sure, a 5G engineer will require certain capabilities that will be the same whether in agri-tech or whether in space, do you know what I mean? So I think that's something that's really important. But equally, as the employers in the room, to just build on Andrew's point, I think it's incredibly important to not forget colleges and work with colleges. We heard a lot this morning about people in universities or training courses being out of touch with the needs of what employers need right now. We work very closely with Gateshead College, which is just across the road with us, to bring the educators in so that they can play with the kit, have a see of what we're thinking about, collaborate with us on R&D projects. So I think it's important to not forget about the role of employers sort of in future-proofing that as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Have we got questions?
Yes, we've got some questions. I'm going to come and stand over there so I can see you all. So we've got some questions. Thank you very much. As Dawn said, we have got a few minutes, so you've still got time to, I can see there's some more coming through. So do send them through. We've had some compliments. So I'm not going to spare your blushes. I'm going to try to get some blushes. So we've had hats off to the Catapult trio from one person to another person saying, such great content around manufacturing. This resource or videos podcast should be shared with schools to teach about our sector. So there we go. Thank you very much. And that actually brought me to a question, again, coming back to really what we've heard again and again today, is that there is that disconnect between education and the real world, if I can put it that way. And I remember, and I don't know if it was at last year's conference or if it was a different conference I was going to, where people were saying that issue about kids not being able to see manufacturing as an opportunity or as something in it. And people saying actually a lot of that is to do with TV shows and dramas and stuff. Like if on EastEnders or on TikTok or on whatever, there were, actors, there were parts of people working in this industry that actually drama, people who create. And I just wonder whether that's something that you recognise, that, where kids get their information is often from movies and films and TV shows.
Can I?
Yeah.
So it's not just specific to manufacturing. It's something that's very much seen with digital careers and tech as well. And I think one of the things, academics have been writing about this for years, just in terms of what sort of Andrew was referring to as well, which is the social and cultural capital, what you see, what you're exposed to, what is normalized almost. And one of the things that we've done very actively in the region is to get on TikTok, is to get on those platforms to really just talk about who's an engineer, who works in tech. It isn't just about someone sitting there at a computer coding away. Just to start to demystify some of those careers.
Brilliant. Yeah. We need fewer CSI type shows and more dramas set on the factory floor or whatever it might be. Or and somebody here saying we need role models for our sector. So that's a similar point. This person saying, apart from the focus on skills development, how does culture, actually we've kind of just touched on that one. There's a lot of cultural questions coming through. Now this is a good one which has come up earlier. Why don't we train and employ older people if there's such a lack of younger people?
I think
I can also take that.
I'm not being ageist in where I'm referring that to.
I can take that too.
I think that the challenge is at times attracting older people into our sector, and particularly recently, we've had so many almost cataclysmic events of COVID and people. So that drove me into semi-retirement. Was at Borden and came back out. But the oil and gas industry, for example, 2015 there was a massive crash in oil and gas. There were a load of people in the oil and gas industry then who just decided it's time to cash my chips in and move out. So older people are often getting more economically inactive. So one of our challenges is if they choose to go back in, I look at jobs these days and think, yeah, I could do that. And then think, but I don't want to work full time.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people like me. So we've got that cultural thing. We've also got the thing, and I'll say one more thing and then shut up. But again, in the Northeast, Nissan have been really struggling because their initial recruits getting into their 50s thinking, oh, I've been building cars for forever. Nowadays, I can get a signing on fee with Amazon. They're paying minimum wage plus, you know, and I can stop off the local chippy from a tea rather than be. So people are actually leaving the industry because with the advent of the living wage, it's easier to get a job that pays reasonably well, that is less stressful. We also have a challenge.
That's a sort of unintended consequence, really, isn't it?
And I think the whole drive in society, that thing of 15%, you know, when people are talking about building gigafactories, and recently there is an aspiration to have a gigafactory in Blythe with 3,000 employees. Yeah. I just wonder whether Blooming Heck are going to get 3,000 people who would want to work on a process line these days when you can drive a van for Amazon and probably get paid as much. So that whole cultural thing of my parents did it, my grandparents did it, so people realise they have a choice. Yeah. And often it's I choose not to work in a factory. I think that is one of our big cultural challenges.
Ashmeeta, and then I'm going to rattle through a few next in a minute.
Equally, I think there is a recognition that some of the requirements are changing with digitalization across various sectors. How do you get people not concerned about being worried that they're not going to be able to do the job? So there are retraining opportunities that councils, particularly in the Northeast, are starting to fund, because I think funding has been an issue, particularly for people who are wanting to come back into the workforce, not just an aging population, but people who may have left for all sorts of reasons, right? So there's this sort of boot camps that people can attend to get those digital skills across various sectors. It's not perfect, but it's a start.
Okay, so I've had a couple of comments. Because we pay too little, the national minimum wage is a scandal, says this person. So a national work attitude problem. You mentioned diversity and getting more women into the industry. In what ways do you think people in this room should actively do? What should they actually do to get women as diversity involved? I'm going to let that one hang because I want to just read out a few and then we'll scoop them all up as best we can. Newly created SME Council has few, if any, from the manufacturing sector. Surely this shows that our sector does not matter to politicians. That's a comment. How many STEM ambassadors are in this room? This questioner asks. We can talk about skills and lack of the culture, but are our manufacturers utilising initiatives already out there? This person says, don't mention sales, low awareness and low esteem, a national scandal. I'm just going to finish on this one. Apart from the focus on skills development, yes, I slightly misread this one earlier. How does culture come into the picture? Finding someone that can fit to the company, then cultural alignment and attitude is just as important as skills. So again, I'm going to do what I did on the panel earlier. I'm going to go up the panel from Ashmeeta to Dawn, and this is going to be your Jerry Springer final word of the panel. Ashmeeta, I'm going to start with you.
There can be a lot more swearing than you've just given me permission.
Yes, I have given you permission.
I think I'm going to pick up on the diversity piece because I think, to echo Andrew's point, we've been having this discussion sort of for years now. And, if we've been talking about the STEM crisis, at lunch I was mentioning this, we've been talking about a lack of STEM skills pretty much since Charles Babbage was around. Like that, that's how far back this goes. I think part of what we need to get a little bit more nuanced about is where are engineers going or scientists going, which sectors are they going into, that it's not necessarily a direct translation of biomedical engineer to biomedical engineering career. I mean, I'm a biomedical engineer and I'm sitting here in a tech company, right? And so, I think it's important for us to track that in a slightly more nuanced way and understand how those capabilities are then transferring to other sectors. That said, there's definitely a shortage of sort of women and particularly people of color in various sectors. But equally, this panel is quite, it's positive if you think about the diversity that's just shown on the panel about people working in this space. So yeah, I'll stop there. I didn't swear.
So practical example, I'm a non-exec director of a small CNC machining business. Difficult to recruit experienced CNC machining people. So with my co-directors, the owners of the business, why don't we recruit an apprentice? No, we can't do that. We don't have the time. Yeah. So I said, well, how did you start? Oh, we did apprenticeship, right? So somebody took a chance on you.
And took the time.
Right? So what I literally had to do was drag them into a local college to meet students. So it's whites over their eyes, meet students and said, what we'll do is we'll sponsor end of term award. we'll offer work experience, and we'll pick somebody. So it's about engaging, and whether that's through work
But
experience.
it's a bit
bringing in
depressing,
students.
that story, isn't it? I mean, in that the initial reaction was so negative.
Yeah, but that is endemic. That is the market failure within our industry. Sorry, you started, so I'm going to finish. So in the 60s, when I started in manufacturing, the large companies overemployed and the apprentices, and the ones they didn't take on filtered into the supply chain. Then in the 90s, they stopped doing that. They closed down training schools. Now, Levy changed some of that with the big players, but for most people, they just take on what they need. The SME community has never really adapted to that. They've always expected someone else. So we need somebody, we'll go out and recruit an experienced person. So, my experience, there are SMEs who are switched on and do some brilliant things with apprentices and training, but I've been on more advisory panels than I can be prepared to admit without embarrassment. So I've talked to lots of SMEs, and sadly, so many we're too busy. No, somebody else will do it. That's the market failure we need to address, is to slap those businesses about the head and say, nobody else is going to do it for you. Take responsibility, do it yourself.
Okay, we're getting into tough love area now. Alex.
So we have an apprenticeship and a degree apprenticeship that all address, they were developed off the back of national occupational standards for the semiconductor sector. The uptake of those courses is practically zero, to the fact that they're now dormant because they're not recruiting enough. We know that's because if I mention semiconductor or compound semiconductor to a child in school, I just get, it's like nerd squared. So going back to the STEM question, 30% of our staff are STEM ambassadors. We have a very good relationship with STEM learning. And this is another, as the Workforce Foresighting Hub, another initiative of the Innovate UK is for us, the catapults, to work much more closely with STEM learning. You have to fill the hopper at a very young age, because you lose them when they go into high school, you lose them at GCSE option, you lose them at A-level option. So there is a role that we have to be better at changing the narrative around STEM. We sponsored the pilot of the UK Electronic Skills Foundation Girls into Electronics course program, which has now gone on to be sponsored by a very large organisation, which is named after a fruit. And through that program, it's won an award. We get girls come into the catapult because they still think engineering is loud, dirty, smelly. Our clean room, in COVID, it was the best place to be. It's silent, and you can be an engineer and sit at a desk. So, but they don't see that. So we try and get girls into our innovation centre all the time, because girls can't be what they can't see. We all know that phrase, but. So that has to happen. We have to start being better at raising the profile of STEM careers in the UK.
Yeah. So you lose girls by 11.
Yeah.
That's what the research shows. By 11, they've decided.
We have run over again. My fault. Dawn, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I'm going to challenge the audience, actually. This is a live programme. It's got at least another year to run of different foresighting cycles. So go and speak to your local or most relevant catapult centre about how you can get involved and contribute to your skills agenda for the future.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to quickly tell you what's happening next before I ask you to give a round of applause for the panel. We're having a coffee break now. It's the last break of the day, and it's a long one, and it's specifically a long one because Richard Browning, who we saw earlier, Jetpack Man, is outside ready to meet and greet. You can go and ask him any questions you didn't have time or weren't able to do earlier. And obviously, please do go and have a look at the exhibition and sponsors and so on. We'll reconvene at 3:35, 25 to 4. But now, please show the panel your appreciation.
just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. You'd be like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much. At long last, love has arrived, and I think that I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. I love you, baby, and if it's quite alright, I need you, baby, to warm the lonely night. I love you, baby, trust in me when I say. Pardon the way that I stare. There's nothing else to compare. The sight of you leaves me weak. There are no words left to speak. But if you feel like I feel, please let me know that it's real. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. I love you, baby, and if it's quite alright, I need you, baby, to warm the lonely night. I love you, baby, trust in me when I say. I love you, baby, and if it's quite alright, I need you, baby, to warm the lonely night. I love you, baby, trust in me when I say. Oh, 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 I love you. Oh, 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 I love you. I do. Gonna wear that dress you like, skin tight. Do my hair up real, real nice. And sync up at my skin to your heart beating. 'Cause I just wanna look good for you, good for you. I just wanna look good for you, good for you. Let me show you how proud I am to be yours. Leave this dress a mess and I'll fall. Still look good for you, good for you. I'm a marquee diamond, I'm a marquee diamond. Could even make that Tiffany jealous. You say give it to your heart, so bad, so bad. Make you never wanna leave. I won't. Gonna wear that dress you like, skin tight. Do my hair up real, real nice. And sync up at my skin to how you're breathing. I just wanna look good for you, good for you. I just wanna look good for you, good for you. Let me show how proud I am to be yours. Leave this dress a mess and I'll fall. Still look good for you, good for you. Good for you, good for you. Good for you, good for you. Trust me, I can take you there. Trust me, I can take you there. Trust me, trust me, trust me, just wanna look good for you, good for you. Baby, let me be good to you, good to you. Let me show you how proud I am to be yours. Leave this dress a mess and I'll fall. Still look good for you, good for you. Trust me, I can take you there. Trust me, I can take you there. Trust me, trust me, trust me,
on the sky, burning in your eyes. You look at me, baby, I wanna catch on fire. It's buried in my soul, like California gold. You found the light in me that I couldn't find. So when I'm all choked up, but I can't find the words. Every hall of faith. I'll always remember us this way.
When the lifting bites hard and ambition somewhere and resentment rides high, but emotions won't grow. And we're changing our ways, taking different roads. Love will tear us apart again. Love will tear us apart again. Why is the bedroom so cold? Turn away on your side. There's more diamond than flawed. Our respect runs so dry. Yet there still is appeal that would get through our lives. Love will tear us apart again. Love will tear us apart again. Get a taste in my mouth as desperation takes hold. Is it something so good? Just can't function no more. Love will tear us apart again. Love will tear us apart again.
All right, well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've had enough opportunity over these last few breaks to schmooze, meet people, make a lot of contacts, and hopefully make some new friends. We are now in the final stretch of the formal business of today's event, and I'm looking forward to lots more questions. They have been fantastic so far. So we've got a couple of presentations and then our final panel. So I'm going to introduce our first presentation of this session. We are looking at a low-code, no-code future. Please welcome from Epicor, Paul Bates.
Okay, just checking you can hear me okay. Thank you. My name is Paul Bates and I'm from Epicor, which is a kind of a manufacturing software provider for small and medium-sized businesses, but it's kind of in the kind of back office side, so not the kind of shop floor stuff. And I'm going to show you some ways in which automation can support an under-resourced kind of IT or skill base. So to set the scene, I'm going to show you a short video about robotic process automation. Now, I know that's been mentioned earlier. It's not the focus of this presentation, but it'll come together towards the end, I assure you. And then I'm going to take a look at just ordinary process automation, using shipping as an example. I could use other examples, but shipping is the one I've chosen for today. And then I'm going to look at business intelligence, including a low-code, no-code approach, which is kind of the purpose of today's presentation. And then finally, I'm going to circle back to robotic process automation and workflow automation. So with that, I'm just going to show you the video. And so let's see if this works.
Many companies have an integration problem. Employees working in their business systems can't access the data they need from the apps they use every day, such as Salesforce, ADP, and ServiceNow. This creates data silos, where employees are forced to search for data across apps, re-enter data several times, and constantly context switch from application to application to accomplish tasks. And then there is a divide between the business and IT. Only IT and developers have access to the tools, but the tools are outdated, and IT can't keep up with the integration and automation needs from the business users. And so the business must wait. Sales wants new opportunities in CRM synced with business systems. Operations wants new item descriptions automatically translated to Spanish using Google Translate. Purchasing wants request for approval emails automatically triggered by spending limits. Accounting wants the latest exchange rates downloaded and updated in the system each month. These are just a few business examples for which Epicor Automation Studio, powered by Workato, makes it viable for business users to act as citizen integrators and developers in collaboration with IT for governance. Epicor Automation Studio empowers citizen integrators to effortlessly integrate and automate scheduled and event-triggered workflows and robotic process automations between apps, data, and your Epicor products with little coding. Epicor Automation Studio provides self-service access to a marketplace of more than 1,000 connectors and tools, of a social community of more than 500,000 published recipes, or sets of instructions that automate complex workflows, giving users a head start to adapt and develop their own automations and integrations across CRM, sales, finance, production, marketing, HR, IT, and other applications. With low-code, visually intuitive capabilities, Epicor customers can get the most value out of their entire technology stack by quickly and easily connecting their Epicor platforms to virtually any applications. Epicor Automation Studio is a cloud application, embedded in cloud or on-premises Epicor platforms for a seamless user experience. Find out more about why, as one customer puts it, Automation Studio solves a real need that we have in our growing business, which is the ability to connect other systems quickly and easily to our instance of Epicor. Visit epicor.com/Automation Studio today.
Okay, so, right. This RPA tool is usually part of a much bigger piece of office automation, and we call it the manufacturing business support system, or kind of back office. And this is the system that in most businesses runs all the administration activities. For a smaller company, it can be as simple as using spreadsheets or sets of spreadsheets. In a more complex business, it's sometimes called an enterprise resource planning system, or ERP, which is something, again, your term you've heard earlier. And so this business support system, as the name implies, supports the manufacturing production process, as well as distribution and sales activities, all with a single source of truth. Now, for a price, you can choose to automate any or all of this, all of these process areas, and of course each business case will have a different return on investment. Now, investments in shop floor production might be seen as the priority for most manufacturers, but sooner or later, businesses that are looking to grow or become more efficient will sooner or later need to look at automating the back office. And more than that, quite often to get the productivity gains from the new shiny physical tools and machinery, you'll find that you will need an investment in the support systems. So, well, how does process automation help with the skills gap is a really good question. So this slide is about shipping software, and that helps to automate repetitive shipping processes. So, for example, helping identify the best shipping rates. But in the context of this discussion, deploying shipping automation helps manufacturers to redeploy shipping staff to more useful functions. So I've got a quote here from a Dutch manufacturing customer called Boers, and they make precision machine parts. Now, using shipping automation, they were able to redeploy drivers to manufacturing. So this is an example of using a simple automation that relieves the skills gap with redeployment. And that's kind of the theme that I'm kind of aiming at for today. So just before I introduce the last two, let's just make sure we really understand the term low code and no code. To address the IT skills gap challenge, low code and no code software development solutions have emerged as a very viable and convenient alternative to traditional development processes. So at one end of coding, you've got this kind of traditional custom coding thing where you pay someone in IT to write new code or build an application. Nothing wrong with that, perfectly good. At the other end, no code is when you get this kind of completely hands-off approach with 100% use of easy visual development tools to create code in the background. It's kind of like magic code. And in the middle, you've got the low code. And that's where you've got this kind of midpoint where you've got some hand-holding from IT professionals. But the interesting thing is, of course, these techniques require fewer or even no technical or IT staff. So, for example, you can have a business intelligence solution, a bit like Microsoft Power BI. Anyone heard of that? Yeah, heard of that? Except with a low code or no code approach. So that means that your staff don't need to know, for example, the SQL programming language to create insight and visualizations. And BI tools, as you probably know, connect to your essential business platforms, like your website, your marketing system, your CRM, and of course the central administration system, and in fact random spreadsheets too that most of us tend to have about, and gather all your data in one place, perhaps in a data warehouse. The interesting thing is that this kind of allows or supports a low-code approach for technical staff who kind of know what they're doing with code, but also a no-code approach for business users, people who don't know code but do know the business. And so this makes it easy and flexible to use something like this to work on projects with a range of complexity. So getting your employees to do self-service, in this case answering their own data and visualization questions, is an automation trend that will help with the IT skills shortage in any business and of course in manufacturing too. And now we're going to talk about RPA. So we're back to the kind of video that we saw. So you can buy a low code or no code process and workflow automation tools. And this type of software will allow your organization to build integrations and automations between applications, as you saw in the video, and processes and data. And they're sometimes called workflows. And this helps non-technical staff, so-called citizen integrators, modify and innovate new processes. And so they can automate workflows between apps and data and your central business system with the minimal coding experience. And of course, what this does again is helps manufacturers with the skills gap by reducing IT labor demands. So in summary, automating your back office can help with the skills gap in manufacturing by freeing up staff to do more interesting activities. Now, you can also link your back office manufacturing support system, or your ERP, with your shop floor machinery without needing to be a rocket scientist or indeed Mr. Jetpack Man. So software companies like Epicor are trying hard to make it really easy for you with tools like RPA and tools that are low code and no code. So look out for them. Lots of vendors are doing them. I think there's one in the foyer today. And finally, two related thoughts. When you do automation, remember to train your staff in problem solving. So only they know what the real problems are at the coalface that should or could be automated. So learn to rely upon their critical thinking and their creativity to overcome problems. And secondly, don't automate things where customers value the human touch. Instead, invest in humans for that. But you can automate the services that support the human behind the human touch. And In the end, your best back office answer might be part automation, part human. Thank you.
Paul, thank you very much. Very, very interesting. Okay, we're going to move on to our final presentation of the day before we have our last panel. This is an industry presentation, a preview of the 2024 UK Innovation Report. Please welcome Head of Policy Links at IFM Engage, Carlos Lopez Gomez.
Thank you. Can you hear me properly? Yes, at the back. Brilliant. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for staying until late. That's an achievement. My name is Carlos Lopez Gomez. I am the head of the Policy Links unit at Cambridge Industrial Innovation Policy, which is part of the Institute for Manufacturing at Cambridge. So my job today is to give you a 10-minute preview of the UK Innovation Report 2024. This is a report that we produce every year and actually will be launching next week in London. So what is the UK Innovation Report and why we produce it? So the aim of the report is to bring together in a single report and also in a very concise manner indicators around economic performance of the UK, but looking at both industry and innovation in a single place. It seems like a groundbreaking idea, but many reports look at innovation in isolation or at industry performance in isolation. And what we wanted to do with this report is to bring those two concepts together. So we do this by answering these kind of questions that you have here. These are policy questions. How is the structure of the UK economy changing? Is the UK spending enough on research and innovation? How does innovation support competitive industries? Is the UK producing enough scientists and engineers? And how does the UK compare in terms of the net zero transition? And as you can see in red in my slide there, we are focusing this year on the machinery and equipment sector. So I'll present 5 key messages of the report. The report has around 50 graphs. I'm not going to go through them. You'll be pleased to know. But I'm just going to go for 5 key messages. And the first one is that the UK has really 2 parallel worlds that coexist. This graph helps us understand these 2 worlds. So on one hand, the UK is a world leader in scientific research and innovation output. But first, let me just explain why this is important. This graph shows sector groupings, the different colors, and their contribution to different economic variables. So if you just look at the yellow bit, it is medium and high-tech manufacturing. So the key message there is that we see that in 2022, medium and high-tech manufacturing accounted for around 4% of UK gross value added, so our GDP, only 2.4% of employment. But if you look at the contribution it has in terms of goods exports and R&D, you see why this sector is important. So it's quite critical for the health of the UK economy, representing around 40% of goods exports and 41% of R&D expenditure by business in the whole country. Only that 4% of people working in high and medium tech manufacturing. And this next graph helps us understand a little bit of these 2 worlds I'm talking about. So if you look, the red line is the UK. And what this graph does is comparing the performance of the UK to 2 leading nations, uses just as a reference. The US is 100, is the blue line. So everything we reference to the US being 100, and Germany is the green line. So on the left-hand side, you can see the first world I'm talking about, which is the UK outperforms not only the US and Germany, but basically every other country in the planet in terms of publications per capita. The UK is also, despite the UK being a smaller country, it has more papers, it produces more academic papers than any other country except the United States and China. It is number 1 for research quality in terms of, if we measure it, for example, by citations. It is number 2 of the world in terms of Nobel Prizes. We have 3 of the top 10 universities in the world, and it is the only country in Europe with a technology sector of more than $1 trillion. Also, we produce a lot of unicorns, more than any other country except China, India, and the US. However, if we look at now to the right-hand side of the graph, we see the second world, which is the share of the population employed in higher value-added manufacturing is lower than competitor countries. Value-added per worker is less than half that of the US. And if you look back, if we look at that variable back in time, what we see is that manufacturing value-added has declined, and I mean, you are very aware of this and has been discussed today, from 16% of our GDP in 1990 to around 8% of our GDP today. Manufacturing employment has declined by 300,000 since 2014, so in the last 10 years. And these jobs, if we look at the data, are high quality, high wage jobs that are being replaced, many outside, most of these jobs outside London, by low value-added services. Now, the second part of the report is looking at spend on R&D. After a change of methodology, the ONS estimates that the UK spends around 2.9% of our GDP on research and development, which is more than the OECD average, but below the key leaders of these measures like Korea, US, Japan, and Germany. But the story as well, if you look at the contribution of the government spend, actually is 10% lower what the UK government funds in research than the OECD average. Now we dip into the machinery sector. It's quite an interesting sector. Every year we focus on different sectors. We've done food, aerospace, pharma, automotive, but this year we're doing this one. Now this sector, the key message emerging from here is that it makes a strategic, important contribution to the UK economy, not just because it's significant, it represents around 11% of the exports of the manufacturing sector in the UK, but also because it has this strategic contribution here. Machinery and equipment supply new technology to industries, both manufacturing and service industries. It plays a key role in diffusing new technologies, helping firms retrofit, upgrade their processes. And in the context of these national debates on productivity and sustainability, we need to recognize that equipment and machinery actually determines how green and how productive our factories are. So those are actually the definitions of the sector there. The UK is a top player in the world. It ranks behind Japan, US, and Germany, but ahead of Netherlands, France, and Switzerland in this sector. So very heterogeneous sector. We have, if you look at the performance of the sectors, you have in the last 10 years, subsector like lifting, handling, and equipment, also agriculture and forestry machinery, increasing value added by 40%, so the total output of the sector increasing by 40%. But in red, you see subsectors like other engines, plastics, and rubber machinery that have contracted by 50% and 90% respectively. So quite a challenging situation, this. And we see in the report, I'm not going to go into detail, but we see this kind of trends. This is a highly productive sector. It's 1/3 more productive than the general manufacturing industry overall, but also 60% more productive than the overall economy. It has, however, the value added has declined. It has this construction from 13 billion in 2008 to 12.5 in 2021. And a key message I think here is just that the sector has lost 28,000 jobs, which is around 15% of the workforce in the last decade. And growth of R&D spend in the sector is lower than manufacturing overall. So again, not going to go into the details. In the report, you'll see this issue about what are the trends, what are the drivers behind these trends. And thanks to many companies, actually some of them represented here, that took part of the consultations, the industry associations. We went around the country to talk to them and try to understand what is the reality behind the economic big picture. And this is the kind of things they mentioned: high production costs, energy costs, of course, you're very familiar, and labor shortages we've discussed today. R&D investment decisions being made abroad because it's dominated by foreign ownership, and trends like sustainability, digitalizations, and new materials. Now, finally, just with STEM, the key message here really is that compared with other countries, actually, as you can see there in the pie chart, the production of STEM skills in the UK is relatively high compared to other countries, so more people enrolled to STEM degrees than many other countries. But however, as it was mentioned here already, what we're missing is the E in STEM. So if you look at it, engineering and technology is actually just a small proportion of that. So only 9.1% of within STEM actually go to engineering, manufacturing, and construction, which are grouped under a subgroup there, which is significantly lower than Italy, Switzerland, Japan, Korea, and Germany. And if we look at the labor market, you look at the survey data, 12% of UK firms in manufacturing and 7% of firms in ICT say they're experiencing shortages of workers, especially with engineering skills. And this is even more pronounced for female graduates as well. So finally, net zero. This is basically quite a actually positive or encouraging picture that is coming up, which is the UK, you can see the GDP there in the red columns actually increasing from 1990 to 2021. The GDP of the UK doubled. And what we see in the yellow line is the emissions actually have decoupled. And during this period, it has reduced by 40%. However, if we try to extrapolate, in order to achieve the net zero target, which is zero emissions by 2050 in average, there's still a long way to go. So those were the key messages. I hope you got some useful information from there. Of course, we encourage you to go and take a look at the report, share the report. Please send us emails if you would like to discuss it. And yeah, we're happy to present it to your organizations as well. The launch event is next Thursday. It's going to be at the Institute for Government in London, but also going to be live stream. So please do sign up. We'd like to see you there. Thank you so much.
Carlos, thank you. Well, I say thank you, but that was probably not completely the news that most of us would have liked to have seen. I think we're going to do an end-of-term report. Room for improvement, I think, would probably be fair. We're going to go on to our last panel now. I'm going to pull one of these chairs away because actually you can see we've got 5 panelists and I'm not going to sit down. So I'm going to invite them to come and join me on the stage at the moment. We've got Annie Toner, who we've heard from Data Shack, Paul Bates from Epicor, Sean Cooley, MTC, so part of the home team, Arash Ghazanfari, who we've heard from Dell, and Chris Corkin from Make UK. Very, very happy to see you all. Thank you very much. Obviously, in this session, and again, please do send your questions because we're sort of going to try to pull together everything we've heard today, specifically looking, of course, at how to prepare your workforce today and for the future. But I just wonder if any of you have any comments on Carlos's report that he was just explaining. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to comment. It's very interesting. Outside of my job here, I've been doing a lot of research into sort of macroeconomic cycles and the impact of and why we've gone from an industrial revolution and how the progress has happened. And we're currently in the middle of an upswing phase. We're in the transition point when all the wars, all the revolutions happen. If you look back through history, it happens at that point in time. And there's 2 phases of what they call creative destruction. The first phase is effectively invention, and we're really good at that. And you can see that this place is testament to that. You know, we invent things here that have never been invented before. We make one of things, and I think it speaks a little bit to what Richard was saying as well. We've got a long history and lineage of inventors. We've lost the skill of turning inventions into innovations and innovations into industry, and that just stood out really clearly there. That in terms of patents, brilliant. We're inventing things. We're not turning the invention into industry and creating the jobs, and the marketplace that goes beyond that. Someone else is taking that and turning that into industry, and I think that's a real concern for me because it feels like managed decline, if I'm honest, at a national level.
And is that because politicians haven't grasped this, or is it because industry hasn't? Is it something to do with we were talking earlier about, our culture and the type of people we are, that, we're not sort of go-getting? Or is it all of those things?
I think it's all of those things. I think you can see from the R&D investment from the government that it's part governmental. I think there's a a culture in British organisations where we become we're not risk takers. We're very myopic in our perspectives. We look at specifically if you're a public company, you look at the next quarter. We don't tend to want to take risks beyond that. We only ever think one chess move ahead, shall we say, which means that our risk taking is very small. Richard was speaking about it earlier very clearly. He said, we rather than think about the risks and what could happen to the risks and how we mitigate the risks, we'd rather not take the risk, and that limits our innovation capabilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would add to that other countries, and I'm not going to name any particularly, but I'm sure you'll know who, take a much longer term view about winning markets, and they'll do that and they'll accept lower returns. Now, we're in a situation in the Western economy where we're expected to produce quarterly growth all the time. And of course, that's not always possible if you're trying to win markets. So there's two things going on. So one is we're not taking the risks, but even if we want to take the risks, we kind of get stifled because of the expectation of quarterly results increasing. And that puts a lot of pressure on startup companies that are making the transition to volume companies and so on. And eventually what happens is they get to the point where they feel that the only way to keep the quarterly results going is to either sell out or in fact to buy, if you can do it through some kind of leveraged kind of deal. So
rather than really putting the legwork in.
Rather than doing the organic growth, which is the difficult bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris?
Yeah, happy to come in on that. I think the elephant in the room to some of really echo those points is probably the fact that the Achilles heel for the UK is obviously the fact that we do not have an industrial strategy. Most, if not all, industrialised nations have that plan, and it is about a partnership between government and industry to develop that plan. And the lack of long-term thinking politically has stifled that. We talk about innovation and how we're not making sure those outputs are being delivered here. That is absolutely part of that. When you consider that product life cycles in manufacturing, as many of you will know, are around 5 to 7 years, we need that long-term base to be able to deliver that and reduce some of those risks, whether it be a fiscal environment. We've had around 20 changes in the last 10 years around corporation tax. We really need to incentivise organisations to deliver more of that here, and we can only really do that if governments, and now the UK government, thinks about that in a much long-term fashion. Businesses don't operate on parliamentary terms, they don't operate on policies that last 1 or 2 years. Your business plans are a hell of a lot longer than that, and that can only really be delivered from having a full-throated industrial strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Annie?
Yeah, I really think that the hesitance that you were talking about are probably waiting too long to start. I spoke about some of the people that I've worked with that just got started. But I can understand that there's a reticence because it's over-regulated. There's no plan, and people are probably scared to spend the money long term because of that. But getting started is the only way I think that's going to get us there.
Yeah, I should have reminded any of you that if you do, either here in the room or online, do send your questions through. And I can see actually I'm already getting some. So one here, just exactly on that issue. SMEs are happy to take risks, but without an industrial strategy, mostly they're flying blind. I think that echoes. Again, Labour, this anonymous emailer says, Labour has an industrial strategy. Is it good, bad or indifferent? Anybody particularly au fait with Labour's industrial strategy? No. So maybe it's got one, but it's not been flagged up very well. Is the lack of transition, this question, of research and development into volume manufacturing due to the incorrect focus of the research? Anybody want to take that?
I would say absolutely not. And in any case, you shouldn't always start research with the aim of expecting to create a volume business. Otherwise, you're just not innovative. You won't research the things that really turn into the really top businesses. You'll be safe. So I would argue that's a kind of wrong premise to even start with. But put that to one side. Okay, I will agree with the second part, which having got something, the market decides, doesn't it? Whether that piece of innovation should turn into a volume business. The fact that we can't seem to do it in the UK as well, are due to the other factors that we've been talking about.
Yeah, Arash,
I think we need a more supportive regulatory environment and perhaps better tax incentives to encourage research and development within the manufacturing sector. And I think there is an opportunity to foster better partnership between technology companies like the company that I represent and the manufacturing sector. There is still a divide in terms of the vocabulary that we tend to revert to versus the manufacturing industry's language. And I think organizations like MTC, in my humble opinion, shouldn't be the best kept secret outside of the manufacturing industry. And I think there is some work to be done to raise awareness around that.
And when it comes to investment, and I don't know if this is relevant or not. I mean, a lot was made about the super deduction or whatever it was called. For secret. And Rishi Sunak was banging on about it. I was reporting on it, and then it just seemed to fizzle.
Sort of fizzled, I think, because what I think businesses wanted to see was that broader sense of support for manufacturing, and where we sit in the electoral cycle hasn't probably helped us. We started the conversation very, very strongly over most of last year with the existing government to appreciate the sector a lot more, quite rightly so, and the fact that this government has identified manufacturing as one of those 5 key growth sectors. So great to see things like the super deduction as providing a longer term, indefinite support there to think longer term around investment. But I think there's 2 things in there. Is one, obviously that was in the autumn statement now last November, and given, as I say, where we are in the political life cycle of Parliament, the spring budget perhaps took a different approach, a little bit away from business, but the positivity of government to engage with us is there. I think that to expect that to really sort of provide a real shift change overnight is not going to happen. And what we need to see is those policies, as with any policy, seep into the business environment's consciousness, look at how we can encourage organisations to take advantage of that, but also key elements of that as a policy to take as an example is, should be expanded on second-hand equipment, on leasing, and those are the sorts of things that SMEs would value much, much more. But I think to expect an overnight dramatic gear change there is not going to be something we see.
Yeah. And let's just stick on the skills shortage. Obviously, that's been one of the huge themes today. Paul, I don't know from your perspective. Obviously, we've heard about kids and teenagers not seeing the role models. We've heard about pay issues. We've heard about people in the sector moving away to other sectors because of pay. We've heard about the sort of the gender issues, ageism. There's a lot to do. How would you, on that, if you were to rank what's most important or what's most crucial, what would you say?
Well, look, I've been in marketing all my career. I won't tell you how many, probably too many. And so the solution I see is a marketing one. And I don't know if you've seen the adverts that the guys in the Royal Navy, the Army, and kind of the Air Force run. But they run these kind of rather nice adverts that show those occupations in an exciting way. And I think that kids respond to that kind of very visual message. And, I'm not saying we can do this, but what I am saying is, why can't the manufacturing industry collectively put out some nice adverts that attracts kids in that way? And yes, put them out on TikTok, go to where they are. They may not watch TV anymore, but we can get to them through TikTok. So I think one of the things is we just need to kind of make it more attractive by, advertising.
Right.
I think that's a really important point. I think that's the main hitting the nail on the head around. We have a great story to tell. I was kind of infused. I joined this afternoon, missed some of this morning sessions, and the amount of joy and excitement from lots of you that joined us in person today around seeing a jetpack and hearing about that story has infused you guys. And I think there's a huge role for all forms of stakeholders, both businesses and other sort of industry partners, to shout about those messages. And in particularly engage with the next generation, both on TikTok and online, where of course the next generation really are, but actually directly in schools. I think we heard a lot of that so far on some of the sessions today. And there's a great opportunity to be doing that through vehicles and campaigns like National Manufacturing Day on the 26th of September, Join Make UK, and lots of you already involved in celebrating what we do, what we make, and the careers available. I think we've got to do a much better job of selling that story. We've got a great one to tell, And I don't think it's in the last few years or decades we've been very good at doing that.
Now, there is a relevant question here, which I think I know the answer to, but there's a question here that says, how come there are no students here today? I think I saw some students here, but I don't know if anyone on the panel. Annie?
Yes, there are,
Yeah,
there are. If you went across, when I came across from the other building, they were all enjoying some food, to be fair.
Well, students don't change. How can we compete with other industries, says this questioner, that more easily offer hybrid working? This did come up earlier, and actually the answer seemed to be that's an image problem rather than reality. What about from Dell's point of view?
I mean, we have been supporting the remote working and hybrid working culture way before the pandemic hit us and hit us all very, very hard. It's not just about technology, it's about the culture and creating a supportive environment that would actually encourage more flexible working arrangements. But I think coming back to the question around how can manufacturing be more competitive as an industry, I think emerging technologies, that's not the whole solution, but it's part of the solution. Leveraging emerging technologies can actually reduce your cost base dramatically. And when you reduce your cost base dramatically through the use of technology, you actually have more funds to play with and reward people more appropriately and create more high value opportunities for young people.
Question here, which I think is interesting, says, I believe in work experience to engage with engineers in education. The vast majority who approach me say they can't get experience in the holiday periods. Does the panel know of resources to connect people? And I don't know who would be able to answer that, but are there any, if there are these kids out there that want to experience this sector, and yet it's very difficult to get that work experience, I don't know if any of you know. No? Don't? Universities is the answer to that one, in case you didn't hear. Right, well, we will take that offline, but I do think that's relevant. You've probably noticed that I've pretty much ripped up the list of questions because I've got so many questions coming from the audience. I think it's more fun to look at those. How many schools? Here's another question. And again, I don't know, this is probably for Sean. How many schools visit MTC each month or year? Does anybody on the panel know?
Gosh, I'm going to be really exposed by my lack of knowledge now about what this side of the building does, to be fair. But I know it's a lot. I don't know if you know, Bernd, do we have an answer for the...
On a regular basis.
On a regular basis.
Constant.
I should have also said that questions that don't either get a full answer or questions that I don't get around to asking will all get answered online. So if you think that we're being politicians here and dodging the question, it's that we're going to go and find out the answer.
Can I just add something to this school piece? I think there's a lot of emphasis on schools, but I'm slightly biased here because my wife and I have been home educating our children for the past 8 years. There is a large community of home-educated, naturally curious children who would actually embrace the opportunity of engaging with organizations like the MTC. And I think we need to do more to include them into the conversation as well.
Okay, lovely.
Good point.
I just wanted to add to that. I think it's our job as business, I think, engaging with marketing companies and customers to actually make that investment in making kids curious and taking them along. Certainly, even some of people in my team who are data scientists and analysts predominantly, taking them to the customer, seeing what they do, what makes it attractive. I think that's what kids are gonna make them want to do that.
Yeah. 100%. Sean, question specifically for you here. Is the future of AI something we should be excited about or something we should be concerned about?
I'll answer. Yeah. Sorry, I'm hogging, but I get this question often. And so it's something to be very excited about. I think on the one hand, I recently built some algorithms for a medical device company, but with Gen AI, I realized that the literature review I spent a few weeks on and replicated with Gen AI took all of 10 minutes. So that side is really, really exciting and a lot of developments there. The other part of it, however, is there's the governance and the speed at what governance is happening. I often liken it, if I had to explain it to a child, to say if enough sources of data tell you that the world is flat, the Gen AI model is going to tell you that the world is flat.
Yeah.
And so we really need to have a decent look at that, because it's scary.
Absolutely, and I would say hallucination is a massive issue.
Can you just expand? I wanted to pick you up on that, or ask you more about that. So that, we're not talking magic mushrooms here. What are we talking about?
We are talking about a situation where your AI model is confidently wrong.
Yeah.
Based on the bad data that is given. Or, we've had some high-profile cases, which I won't name, in the news recently because of some unhealthy bias in the data with the best intentions created horrendous results that has produced reputational damage for the company involved. And we need to have guardrails in place. I'm very excited about the possibilities that generative AI can bring into every industry, but I'm also quite cautious because we need some ethical frameworks and some proper guardrails around it to avoid disastrous consequences.
Yeah, I'm quite concerned about bad actors using AI for cybersecurity attacks. I'm told, and I kind of slightly agree with the people who, we're on top of it as a country, we're on top of it mostly, but the rate at which AI could be used by bad actors to create attacks does worry me.
This is an entirely selfish question as a mother of two teenagers, constantly being told by my engineering and very science-based father-in-law they should both be going into coding. Actually, having watched your presentation, I was thinking that's completely old news. They definitely should not be going into coding.
Well, I've got a son who's graduated in game software design, and I had the same conversation with him, but he's totally confident. Mostly because of the conversation. I don't know why I'm looking over there. The previous panel was talking about all the new stuff that's coming together, where you get this kind of blend of, games with digital screens and goodness. That's a massive growth industry. It always will be. There'll always be a place for kind of handwritten code. You wouldn't want to fly in a jumbo jet that's been written by code that's been written by some kind of low code, no code production engineering.
Right.
Well, I certainly wouldn't. And there are lots of other similar situations. But for general business processes, yeah, fine.
I think that an appreciation of what good looks like is really important. But I think the skill sets that are going to be more valuable in the future is around critical thinking, creative thinking, being able to communicate effectively, understand the requirements of the business, and turn that into the outcomes. I think that's more important than coding for the sake of coding, I would suggest.
A couple of questions here. In an increasingly integrated manufacturing world, what will combat the higher cybersecurity threat? Who's best to tackle that one, cybersecurity?
I think the convergence of IT and OT is only going to increase the attack surface. And I think in the cybersecurity industry, there's been a lot of focus on defense, but not enough focus on recovery. So at some point, we are going to be subjected to a destructive cyber event. Do we understand what critical digital assets do we need to protect? Do we understand what our minimum viable enterprise looks like? And do we have a repeatable and sustainable pathway to recovering that? The resilience, I think, is going to be hugely important, particularly in the current geopolitical environment in which we find ourselves.
I've got a question here. MBDA are struggling with a skills shortage, specifically electrical. How are other businesses attacking the skills shortage prevalent in industry today? I don't know if anybody's got anything to say on how other industries...
Well, I think that's the big question of today, and my key takeaway, I think, both from all the organisations I speak to, but also some of the presentations today, is you've really got to be in it to win it. And I think it's fascinating that in the sector, 3 of the top 8 things that businesses are investing in 2024 are around apprenticeships, upskilling and training programs. So the focus is absolutely there from a business perspective. And I think taking the bucket of previous questions around AI and home working, I think what we've got to do in manufacturing is really play to our strengths. We've got to really demonstrate how, compared to other industries, it's in terms of attracting new people into manufacturing or back into manufacturing is around how we are delivering on new technology and innovation. We are adopting AI. We've got to excite people with those things. We're developing the future in terms of the transition to net zero. We've really got to play to our strengths. Yes, we're not going to be able to offer everybody home working. We're doing a lot on flexible working, and I'd say you've really got to be in it to win it. Engage with your training providers, your MTCs, your colleges, your trade associations. Those partnerships are really invaluable, and I think we're seeing a greater emphasis on creation of those partnerships to really inspire and make sure you're leveraging those connections to support your business, particularly in some of those areas.
Right, well, we have rattled through a lot of questions from the audience, but I've now got seconds left, but I'm going to run over just by a couple of minutes. I want to, obviously, we were meant to run through all sorts of ideas that we could come up with to plug the skills gap that we know there is. It seems to be, well, it's obviously the theme of the day. Bearing that in mind, I'm going to, again, go down the panel from near to far and just give some final thoughts on that.
Well, I've got a slightly out-of-the-box solution, which is I spoke to my daughter, who's a graduate aeronautics engineer, asked if she would want to go into engineering manufacturing. She absolutely would, no problem at all. But she did say, OK, there's a problem with, with generation rent, we can't afford the mortgages and so on, we need to be paid more. So how about, guys, offering houses which are kind of part-owned? I think you'll find that would be hugely attractive to lots of people, graduates and so on. In fact, I think they'll bite your arm off.
Well, as in sort of sheltered accommodation for young
Well, it was good enough
engineers.
for Bourneville, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just a thought.
Something. So, well, certainly with the planning issues
Well, they
going
used to. You used to get maternal behaviours in capitalism. Capitalism used to have a paternal nature. Cadbury's, York, places like that, Rowntree's. They used to be able to provide a working space for the workers and created loyalty within that team in order to feel part and belonging of something bigger than themselves.
And then they can all work from home in their sheltered accommodation.
I think it would be part ownership. Part ownership. I'm not suggesting that,
Yeah, no, I like it. Arash.
I want to talk about it from a business and technology transformation perspective. It might seem very daunting. Where do I start? How do I start taking advantage of these innovative opportunities that are out there? I would say work with organizations like Dell Technologies, like others in the industry, to understand where you are now and where you want to go and build a transformation roadmap that's aligned to your strategic priorities. And don't feel that you're alone. Don't feel that you have to go at it alone, because that can create new complexities and new operational silos if it's not done appropriately. So I would say closer partnership between the tech industry and the manufacturing industry is going to be essential. And MTC has a huge role to play in that, in my opinion.
Annie?
Yeah, Arash, I think I want to sort of reiterate what you said. I found a lot of places where it works well is, the first thing is what I spoke about earlier, upskilling and multi-skilling, perhaps your manufacturing workers, teaching them new skills like data literacy and tech skills, the things that they see on TV. I think those are key, definitely. But and also start, do something. I think people are daunted, and there's this culture of it looks so big. How do I eat an elephant?
Yeah, that's
bite by little bite. I have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I think.
Sean?
Yeah, I'd reiterate that point. I think people are paralysed by the pace of change. The exponential scares them to death. But as Alan Kay once said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So and if we don't know what the future looks like, we know it's not going to look like the past. So we need to develop people who can adapt to a changing world, and that's a mix, I think, of critical thinking skills, which were mentioned earlier, but also system thinking to understand the interoperability of these systems and second-order effects and unintended consequences, and then design thinking. How do we simplify the complexity in such a way? If you looked at, I'll use Richard's example again, the invention was being able to get someone to fly, but the thing that's actually really exciting was the 5 business models he reeled off that he had created, from racing, from military, from defense. It's the taking the innovation and thinking about what we can do with it. So the question was raised earlier about how good we are at science and technology, and yet we shouldn't restrict our thinking in that aim just on whether we make money, but we need the people who could look at that and go, that's a fantastic invention, we can do X, Y, Z, and actually take that into a business. And that's where I think we've got a gap.
Chris?
my two big takeaways would certainly be to try and be as curious as you possibly can be, but also try and be as an industrial magpie as you can be, and steal what other businesses, whether it be your customers, your suppliers, are doing with pride. We're all facing the same issues around how do we adopt new technology, how do we encourage new people into our workplace. All those issues are the same in the sector across all our different marketplaces. So do engage with people like the MTC, the trade associations such as Make UK, and learn from others, because I think the one thing we certainly all learned in the pandemic as individuals, but also as businesses in circumstances, was you are absolutely not alone, as I think Arash said, and do collaborate and learn from others. That's absolutely vital if you're going to try and push forward on some of these issues, because it's too much to do on your own, particularly for our SMEs.
Okay, I think that's a great note to end on. I'm going to invite the panel to leave the stage and invite you to give them a round of applause. And that pretty much brings the official business today to a close. There's nothing more terrifying than being the only human being standing between a group of people and an alcoholic beverage, and that's where I currently find myself. But before I announce that the bar is officially open, I just want to say some really, really big thank yous. Obviously, first of all, thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and being away from the hurly-burly of either political coverage or, even worse at the moment, royal coverage, and actually be talking about real jobs and real manufacturing enterprise and real ambition has been an absolute delight and treat. So thank you for having me along for the party. Of course, as I said at the beginning, thank you to the headline sponsors. Days like this can't be done without their support. So thank you to Lloyds Banking Group. Thank you to the Manufacturing Technology Centre, of course, and the manufacturer. And I just want to say a very, very big thank you to the events team who have sweated blood and tears to put today together, and I think it has been completely seamless. So please, at home, could you join us in a round of applause? But in this room, please give Richard Watkins and his team a big round of applause for their efforts. If you're joining us for dinner, we'll be kicking that off at about 5:15, and we will call you, and there will be table plans so you know where you're sitting. But between now and then, the bar is open. Thank you.
Let me take you away.